He gives you the latest breaking news when he hits the air. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
Yeah, we have a pattern now of mass shootings in this country that has no parallel anywhere else in the world. And there's some steps we could take, not to eliminate every one of these mass shootings, but to improve the odds that they don't happen as frequently. Common sense gun safety laws, stronger background checks, and for those who are concerned about terrorism, some may be aware of the fact that we have a no-fly list where people can't get on planes, but those same people who we don't allow to fly could go into a store right now in the United States and buy a firearm, and there's nothing that we can do to stop them. That's a law that needs to be changed, and so my hope is that we're able to contain this particular shooting, and we don't yet know what the motives of the shooters are. But what we do know is that there are steps we can take to make Americans safer, and that we should come together in a bipartisan basis at every level of government to make these rare as opposed to normal. We should never think that this is something that just happens in the ordinary course of events, because it doesn't happen with the same frequency in other countries.
I bet he's just pissed. When we started out the hour, I said, who's going to be the first to politicize a tragedy? We don't even know anything about the shooters yet. It ended up being Hillary, then O'Malley, and then Gavin Newsom. Obama was fourth. So it doesn't surprise. The president's concerned. For those of you concerned about terrorism, well, how about you don't bring in those Syrian refugees that your own director of national intelligence, your FBI director, your assistant FBI director, and the general you appointed for ISIS strategy all say, hey, don't let these refugees in. We can't vet them. Maybe that would prevent events, too. We can do those simultaneously, President pushover. Anyway, 800-941-SEAN if you want to be a part of the program. Joining us now is Jonathan Gillum, former Navy SEAL, FBI special agent, and Ron Martinelli, retired police officer, forensic legal analyst, certified medical investigation. Welcome all of you to the program. And Jonathan, putting aside, I don't really want to get this into a gun debate. I want to look at this more from a law enforcement standpoint. We know that these guys went in, they targeted the people that rented out this building. We now have 14 dead, 14 injured. We have all these people now going to the hospital. The FBI saying that all the wounded have been extracted, and that we do not know if this is a terrorist incident. It may be, it may not be. But it appears that these shooters, 1 to 3 men, went in there and that have now escaped, and they were targeting a group of people that were having some type of gathering or Christmas party. So that tells me that maybe there was a specific person or persons that were being targeted here.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all, Sean. And I think that people have to realize when they have a facility and they invite others to come in and use that facility that may not be a part of their organization, they're in fact inviting whatever threat that those people may have. They're inviting that threat also into their facility. So when you bring outside groups in, you're also bringing outside threats in. And that's a possibility. But I think we can say 100% without a doubt that that specific group in that location was targeted. It could have been because there was an announced party and people were there. It could have been because they have a vendetta against that particular group. But we do know that they didn't go into the facilities around that and hit the other individuals that are there on a regular basis. It was pretty much what we're seeing, only targeting that theater where a party was happening.
Mm-hmm. So that tells you that this was a targeted thing, well planned, well orchestrated. Of course, they came in military gear, tactical gear, and masks, so they wanted to get out of there. That wasn't their plan to die.
And Sean, let me just say this: that is something that, because people are not used to seeing the military style gear or this type of a coordinated attack inside the United States, it's gonna be difficult for people to say who was this and what group do they belong to. But it's important for us to realize that type of equipment is available all over the place now, and for good guys and bad guys, anybody can get their hands on this type of stuff. So we can't rush out and say that this was, like I've heard people saying, a militia group, for instance. We can't say that it was necessarily somebody who is, an Islamic jihadist. We have to just simply look at the fact of right now who this group was, the facility where it was at, and try to work from there backwards until intel comes in as to who these groups may have been.
Dr. Martinelli, let me ask you, as a retired police officer and a forensic analyst and certified medical investigator, it appears they might have found the car. It appears that certainly these guys took some precautions in terms of not leaving evidence around. Where do you start in terms of trying to find these guys?
That's a great question, and here's what's taking place right now. I absolutely agree with your other expert. This was a coordinated attack. It was a targeted attack. I know this area very well. I've trained a lot of law enforcement agencies and officers in San Bernardino City itself. I used to actually have an office just down the street from where the shooting took place. Here's what the investigators are going to do now. They're going to identify the decedents. They are going to identify all the people that were shot. They're going to try to figure out what this group is, and in so doing, they need to find out what the relationship is, if any, between the shooters and the people that were shot and killed and wounded. Usually, in a targeted attack, certain people are targeted. They will try to find out who were the first people that were shot. They are going to be talking with all of the involved parties, trying to find out who's on an enemies list, who was disgruntled, what kind of problems they had. The thing that is remarkable to me that is this was not one active shooter. You have three people, well-dressed, well-armed. You have a vehicle that was used to escape from. That vehicle, if it's true, was found in Pasadena. That's 55 miles away. During the noon hour, it wouldn't take more than an hour just going a little bit above the speed limit to get down in Pasadena. What is the relationship between Pasadena and San Bernardino? If you are going to commit an assault, you usually dump your vehicle within a couple of miles of where the scene is. These people headed down towards Pasadena. There is a reason for that. The police now are going to be checking with surveillance cameras in the area, including the traffic cameras and the freeway cameras, to try to plot the escape of these people. They are going to try, once the vehicle is recovered, to look at all the video surveillance around that area. They will process that vehicle forensic evidence, and that's where they're going right now as far as their investigation.
Jonathan Gillum, if you were the police at this point, I've got to be worried that they may have a hard time finding these guys, and then you have to worry, is their agenda bigger than maybe some specific people in that room?
Yeah, I think you're hitting the biggest nail on the head here, Sean, when it comes to this type of an attack where they do the attack and then they are able to get away. I think bank robberies are a good example of this. Except bank robbers they hit a bank and then they leave, and they're no longer a threat necessarily unless they're confronted. We don't know exactly who these individuals are, but as we see with bank robbers, once you get a certain distance away, if you plan for that move, you can pretty much disappear into the community. And the further they got away before they dumped the vehicle, the more likely they are to continue to move, either towards another target or just to get away. And I want people to realize that you in this day and age of changing tactics and threats, you can't think that somebody's going to go in and do a terrorist attack, if this is in fact a terrorist attack, and blow themselves up or kill themselves. If ISIS gets smart enough, or these different fundamental Islamic jihadists get smart, they're going to realize that logistically they only have a certain amount of people here in the United States. So hit and run is going to be probably way more.
But isn't it less likely, though, based on past experience with radical Islamic terrorism? Isn't it less likely that they have that fear because there's a belief system that's predicated that dying rewards you in heaven, and Allah's got 72 virgins waiting for you?
It has been in the past, but what we've also seen overseas is that ISIS is becoming more tactically sound, where they're doing hits over in the war zone and either sustaining ground or they're hitting and leaving. They're not staying there. So if that ideology comes over here, just like all the other, things that they've used where in the past where they've used females or they've used handicapped people to do attacks overseas, if those things come here, it's going to be a game changer because people aren't looking for that. If they start doing hit and move attacks here, that's going to be an issue that we're going to have to confront. So, but the best way to confront these issues is to not throw those ideas out based on history. It's better for us to at least contemplate the possibility of those happening.
Yeah. And Doctor, you agree with that?
Well, yes, I do, and I also want to just remind the public of look at what was targeted. You've got the whole city of San Bernardino, and you have all sorts of other places that these people could have gone to. They could have gone to cafes. They could have gone to the big movie theater that's in not too far from there, about a mile away in downtown in the central area of San Bernardino. There's a lot of populated areas, a lot of restaurants. That entire area of Waterman and Hospitality Drive are full of restaurants where they're always filled with people. They did not select that area. They selected that Inland Resource Center for a particular reason. And then also, and it could be coincidentally or just well planned, it's right next to the 215 where they can jump on that freeway and get up on the 210, which is the conduit that is going to take you to Pasadena. And again, what the police are going to be looking for is any language that these people used during the shooting. Are there any clues that we can get from the language? What words were stated? Were any phrases stated?
They probably know all of that by now. Anybody that survived this, that is conscious and awake, I'm sure they've been debriefed, immediately.
Well, don't always assume these things. It takes investigators a while to get this information down, but I will tell you something about the Southern California law enforcement. They are excellent agencies. They coordinate all the time. They have a good operating network. We've got great computer and surveillance systems in that area. And so it's going to take a little bit of time for the police to do the work. Then also understand that if they do get some very good clues, they're going to keep that under wraps amongst themselves so that they can plan a tactical operation of capture and control. We just don't know any of that information yet.
And Jonathan, if this was a targeted attack, as you and I both suspect, then the likelihood is these guys are really focused on escaping. They're not focused on the next attack.
Well, that's a possibility. I can't say for sure, but
nobody can say anything for sure. But I'm trying to analyze this as objectively as I can and trying to reach a logical conclusion.
Well, here's what we know. We know that whoever attacked this facility left, and from a tactical standpoint, that gives us one of two leads. They either did it and are trying to flee, or they did it and they're getting ready to attack something else. So you have to assume the worst.
Absolutely.
So you know the reality. So we have to assume that the possibility is there that they attacked and they're going to carry out another attack. So people have to be aware all around San Bernardino right now because, they could be drawing all the resources to this one location so they can go somewhere else. And it's important for people to realize this is how you think through a situation. It's not fear-mongering. It's this is how you have to assume the worst so you can...
Well, if we look at terror attacks, for example, they often, and we saw this in Paris, they often hit multiple sites at once. Now, it's been a couple of hours since this attack, and we have not been hit again. They have not acted again. There has not been a simultaneous attack, at least not up to now. I think you're getting a different profile. Again, this was a large facility with 670 people working there. I mean, if they wanted to do the maximum amount of damage, they could have gone through building after building and door after door and shot up everybody, and then, of course, died in the process. They didn't do that.
And I think that's a good point to raise. They picked a particular group of people at a particular time. They didn't take over the building and go door to door. There was no use of explosives that we know about. The suspicious package was blown up. We don't know what that suspicious package was. We don't know if it was an improvised explosive device or it was just somebody's briefcase or a backpack, a suspicious backpack that was left behind. So these guys are in the wind right now, And now it's the job of law enforcement to backtrack and try to figure out what the connections are between those shooters and that particular group and why that vehicle was dumped in Pasadena.
Well, again, but the Pasadena vehicle turned out not to be the vehicle.
Okay, then we don't know where that vehicle is right now.
No, I mean, and that's probably the really scary part of everything. Anyway, 800-941-SEAN is our number. Even though we're running out of time here, I want to thank both of you for being with us.